We'll go ahead and call Privileged Election Subcommittee number 2 to order. Jump right into the first bill on the docket, House Bill 1751. Delegate Davis, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there's a substitute, I believe, in front of you.
All right, the substitute, I think, is on LIS and is in front of members. Can I get a motion on the substitute?
Move the substitute.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Substitutes before us. Delegate Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the substitute in front of you is significantly different than the original bill. The original bill had, it spoke to primaries for presidential candidates. It spoke to party primaries in the case of delegate and state senate races. All that is out of the bill. What is in front of you now in the substitute is just really a technical amendment. It basically replaces the words a county board of supervisors or city council with governing body. We accidentally left out towns when we were listing board of supervisors and city council. So this just basically handles all governing bodies. And then we fixed another technicality. You see, most local elections don't just have the local body run by themselves. It's usually a local body and the school board. And what gets confusing is when one body runs one way and the other body runs a different way. So this says that if you're going to have a ranked choice voting environment, that both the local governing body and the school board have to vote to have one, so they're both on the same method. Today, we already allow local governing bodies to have ranked choice voting. We just need to get rid of the confusion of having two different voting methods on the same ballot for local governance. And that's all my bill does at this point, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions of Delegate Davis? Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Bloxham.
All right, Delegate Davis, I'm looking through here now. There is no fiscal impact.
No, sir.
So how can our machines handle ranked choice voting at this point?
Well, so, Mr. Chairman, I would say that some localities already attest they can. I believe Northern Virginia has localities that have run or are about to run ranked choice voting. But I don't necessarily speak to that, except that the status quo in the code already allows ranked choice voting. So whether they can be handled, can't be handled, it's already allowed. All my bill does is make the technical amendments that prevent us from having an election with two different models, ranked choice and traditional. That just cleans that up. So as much as I think some localities can operate ranked choice voting already today, my bill doesn't speak to that as much as it just clears up a technical issue.
Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for asking that question as well. I was curious about how fiscally we respond to that. So along those lines, I would ask the patron, if this were to pass and be effective July 1st, what would be the plan if there's no fiscal impact to make sure the education of voters rolls out? Because ranked choice voting can be very confusing.
Sure. Delegate Maldonado, that's up to the locality. Some localities do not want ranked choice voting in their systems. The governing bodies, some do. But once again, this is already established in the code. Ranked choice voting is in the code. It's already permissible for local government bodies to do this. I would expect that those that are interested have already started the education process, I would surmise. But what's really important is this doesn't say you can have or you can't have. It doesn't say you have to educate or you can't. It's just if you do it, you have to have the same method of voting for local governing body and the school board. So we don't confuse voters. That's really all this bill does at this point, is just creates a consistency if there was a locality was going to do it, which they already have the right to do in the Commonwealth.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you. Thank you for that. One other just clarifying question. I see in the bill it says that when there is a vote, that it has to be approved by both the governing body and the school board. Yes. Does that mean that if somebody runs for, say, the Board of County Supervisors, the school board has to approve that if they want to use ranked choice voting?
No, what it means, Delegate Maldonado, is in a local election, you have school board elections and, let's say, Board of Supervisor elections. And this just says that the board has to vote to have ranked choice, and the school board has to vote to have ranked choice for you to have ranked choice. Otherwise, you end up with ranked choice for one body, traditional for another, and you tend to confuse voters. So one body wouldn't impact the other body, except that if they want to get a ranked choice, both have to approve it.
Thank you. One final point, follow-up, Mr. Chair. I would propose that the way, and this may be for the attorney, the way that line 25 reads, it looks like whenever there is a decision to do it, that both have to agree, as opposed to one agreeing for each of the respective bodies, and there might be a minor clarification needed for that. I would like to ask.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Davis, as I understand it, that's intentional, correct? So that a local governing body could not approve ranked choice voting for itself. It would need to do it in tandem with the school board every time, correct?
The intent is that both bodies take a majority vote for their body to have ranked choice voting, and if both do not agree, neither one can have it. So if that's what this says, great. If we need a clarifying change, I'm happy to have that as well, Ms. Delegate Maldonado.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Waxman, I'll get you. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I could ask the delegate, I probably should know the answer to this question, but do you have a feel for how many localities are currently taking advantage of ranked choice voting?
So I understand I think it's Alexandria is having a conversation about it. But there's a couple, the big issue is, there's a couple having the conversations I know, and I can't give you the firm number. The issue is the minute one of them takes advantage of it without this language, it's going to be confusion as all get out, right? Because the minute one locality says, we're going to do it, today, school systems are banned from having ranked choice voting. They cannot have it, so they have to have a traditional method. So you will, by I guess code, have ranked choice for one local body, non-ranked choice for another, and confuse the bejesus out of the voters. So this just basically says that if you're going to have it, both local elections have to be the same. So whether it's next month or this November or next November or 3 Novembers from now, we're just trying to get out in front of this.
Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you're got some good thoughts on this. My question is, if the Board of Supervisors or the City Council want to have ranked choice voters, could they be vetoed by the school board?
This basically says that unless both bodies agree to do ranked choice, neither one can have it. And the sole purpose of that is to ensure you don't have a ballot that one is ranked at one time. So essentially, yes. If one body says no, the other body can't do it, and obviously the confusion would just be absurd if you do two different ways on a local ballot scenario. So,
Mr. Chairman, just to comment on the bill. I think that's a good idea to have them both the same, but I do not like having the school board to be able to veto what the governing authority is who actually pays for the schools.
right.
That just sounds weird to me. Can you fix that?
So Delegate Sickles, in the original, I actually had the local governing body make the decision for both bodies. Because I figured, as long as you keep consistency, you're good. There was some objection to having the local governing body make the decision for the school board. If that's a discussion to be had, I'm happy to kind of have that. I think that's, as we move forward, if we need to have that conversation. But I was asked to make both bodies be able to take their own votes, and that's the way this ended up.
Okay.
All right, any further questions? Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this bill? Come on up.
Good morning. My name is Pamela Berg. I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League of Women Voters of Virginia supports the expansion of ranked choice voting permitted in HB 1751. We believe that ranked choice voting, or RCV, would make our elections more accessible, would promote nominees with broad support, and would ensure that every voter's voice is heard. Many voters feel that they must vote strategically in elections rather than selecting the candidate who best represents their views. For example, without RCV, voters might vote for someone who they believe had the best chance of defeating their last choice. We also understand that the Republican Party of Virginia used RCV with great success to select their nominee for governor in 2021. And lastly, 5 states use RCV in the most recent 2020 presidential primaries and caucuses, including Hawaii, Alaska, Kansas, Wyoming, early voters in Nevada. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also, I know we've got people here in the room for and against. We've got people online for and against. And we took a very broad bill that Delegate Davis had and narrowed it down. So we need to be talking about and debating that bill, not the original bill, which was certainly much broader. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name is J.T. Kessler. I represent the Virginia School Boards Association. We do not have a position on ranked choice voting, but we appreciate the delegate making this technical amendment.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. My name is Liz White. I am the Executive Director of Upvote Virginia, and we support all practicable expansions of ranked choice voting in the Commonwealth. We believe it elevates the voices of Virginia voters and gives them a more thorough and complete method for expressing their preference. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in the room in opposition?
Hi, good morning. My name's Nancy Smith. I'm with Middle Resolution PAC, and we stand in opposition to 1751, even the amended version. I appreciate the delegate removing federal offices and presidential primaries from this. The congressional delegation was not made aware of this, nor certainly was the RNC committee woman, so I appreciate that amendment to it. We stand in opposition to any expansion of ranked choice. Ranked choice is considered a scheme, and that's been certainly elaborated on by former Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. There's concern when you have a ballot that creates confusion for the public. There are a number of states where there has been such voter pushback that RCV has been repealed in those states. The voters are confused. I think it is true disenfranchisement of voters when they go in with a multi-ballot elimination process that is confusing. The machines do require an algorithm, and I'm not sure that Virginia is prepared for that. We already have low confidence in our elections, and to take on a new process, even at the local level, with machines that have to be changed, presents yet another obstacle to transparency and to clear communication. No voter education on this has been done, to my knowledge. There are certainly groups that are canvassing the state, talking about this legislation, but voter education, I think, is important and certainly should have been brought forward if we could go back in time before this bill was presented and voted on in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. I am Susan Hogue, a lifelong Virginian and a former finance and policy analyst for House Appropriations for 16 years. Good to see some of my fellow past delegates here this morning. And also a founding member of the Republican Women of Greater Richmond organization. I have firsthand experience with the Republican convention that was held in May of 2021 as a tabulator, and I can speak to my experience of what my team handled. The ballots themselves were very confusing. We had a nationally ranked parliamentarian come in to be the facilitator of the process, and even the teams that had her training throughout the course of the convention to track the ballots and to accurately put them in the order, it was still very confusing for those people. And when we looked at the ballots, we saw hundreds and hundreds of ballots that were incorrectly filled out based on the RCV way. And if you had your ballot eliminated because you didn't follow the methodology, then your vote was lost. You were silenced. You were being disenfranchised by the RCV method. And you may ask yourselves, well, gee whiz, who would be likely not to be able to understand the RCV way and methodology so that their voice will be heard in the final round of counting the ballots? And it is typically the less educated. And isn't that what you're supposed to all be about, is to defend and watch out for those people that are less educated and may not necessarily understand the consequences of ranking every single candidate on a ballot. And I would think that you would not want to have that in any way, shape, or form with ranked choice voting, even in its current current posture in the law, or, God forbid, even expanding it to incorporate even more offices for potential elections. Thank you very much.
Good morning. May I speak in favor of the bill? I know it's
yes.
out of order.
Sure.
My name is Chris DeRosa. I'm in Arlington. I was one of the volunteers who talked to voters and helped to pass, encourage the county board to pass our ordinance to use ranked choice voting in their county board primary elections this coming June. One point I want to make is all the exit polls that I've done in localities where they have used ranked choice voting find that 80% or so of voters found that it was easy to use, easy to understand, and were favorable to using it again in future elections. I also understand that all localities in Virginia, except for one, has hardware that is ready to tabulate ranked choice voting ballots. So I want to clarify that. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on the line and start. We'll take the ones who are for and the ones who are against. But again, I would say that we're not really debating the policy of ranked choice voting. We're debating the policy of whether ranked choice voting should be authorized at the locality in this manner. Delegate Bloxham, you have a question?
Well, I did have a question. I guess I need to wait till State Board of Election comes up, because the question that all localities are ready for ranked choice voting except for one, I've got to assume that I'm the one, because I know we're not ready for it. I don't know if any others are not either. That's why I need to ask State Board of Election that.
So you want to hear from the rest of the witnesses first?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move online. We have several people signed up under the for category. The first one I have signed up that I see online is Shane Crow.
Thank the chair. Good morning. I'm here in support of ranked choice voting, particularly with regards to the amendment as proposed, linking the school board and local governing body. I don't particularly see an issue if one locality or one race were to be done with ranked choice voting and another to be done with traditional voting. This was the case that happened in Alaska during their special election last year, where some of the races were done with ranked choice voting, some of them were done with traditional voting, and a majority or a supermajority of the voters were able to, one, parse out between the ranked choice voting elections and the traditional elections and fill out their ballots as appropriately. But in general, ranked choice voting is something that will help enfranchise voters to express their political preferences to the best of their preference, as opposed to being restricted to only having to give one vote to one candidate as it currently is with the traditional system. As such, I stand in support.
Let's see here. Elizabeth Melson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So this bill, I definitely support this. It's just an incremental expansion of what we already have allowed in Virginia, and it's optional for the localities to implement. The State Department of Elections has already made the regulations for administering RCV elections, including the education requiring 60 days prior to election. And they'll also administer their first RCV election in June 2023. So they're already working towards this. And at least one locality in Virginia gave the reason of not being able to use it for school board as a reason for not adopting it last fall. And I think somebody already said, but the Virginia election machines can run RCV elections, provide the cast vote record, and then they can be tabulated with software. So there's not going to be hand counting done like the Republican Party did. I'll stop there because my time's running short, but I do support HB 1751.
Thank you. Jim McBride.
Mr. Chair, due to the lack of interest in third parties in America, I'm pretty sure voters understand how our plurality system works. But majority rule is the cornerstone principle of our democracy and leads to better outcomes for voters. Legislators don't decide on bills without considering what the majority can agree on. Voters should have the ability to consider what the majority will agree on as well. And Arlington will test RCV in their June board primary, and after that occurs, I think interest will skyrocket. But we need to empower election officials to use RCV in more elections in order for them to be able to, make that effort to take the time to try it. So please consider it.
Is there anyone else online in favor of this bill? All right, we'll move over to the opposition. Diana Howard. Diana, you're muted.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't oppose the amendment, but I oppose ranked choice voting. I think it's overly confusing and complicated, and I don't trust the system to do the algorithm.
All right, thank you. And Gregorian?
Yes, thank you. I would like to say,
I think you just muted yourself.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'd like to say that I get the feeling my husband would call this what he would call his mission creep if you've ever been in the military. So I'm opposed to any expansion of ranked choice voting. I just get the eerie feeling of past years when we've changed our election system so much that it caused chaos, and it continues today. Just recently, we've had HB 1180 that's looking to repeal Zuckerbuck's private money. We've had SB 1442 and 2308, which requires more time to certify elections. Why are these needed? Because of the insertion of unnecessary complexity into our election system. I feel like this is another attempt. I feel this is a coordinated attempt. I feel like this money, this attempt to get private money back is going to be to support the educational requirements of our ranked choice voting. It's going to be to support not the hardware, but the software. Cast vote records by most localities can't be produced because they can't afford the $50,000 software to produce the cast vote records. They have the hardware. It's the software that they don't have. So I would really beg this group to take not to separate the pros and cons of ranked choice voting from the expansion of the opportunity of ranked choice voting. Thank you very much. I know I'm out of time.
Clara Wheeler.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I would like to say that ranked choice voting in any form is a bad idea for the population of Virginia. The educational component alone is overwhelming. I, too, was in the ballot room for the Republican convention. I, too, as Ms. Hogue said, saw the disarray and the confusion of educated voters who had spent a lot of time being instructed on how to vote a ranked choice ballot and still were unable to do it. To answer Delegate Bloxham's concern, I am a member of the Albemarle County Electoral Board, and I can tell you Albemarle County isn't ready. We are looking at the cost, and right now the cost is overwhelming to put software in to any machine, count any ballot, and now you're asking a school board to override a board of supervisors or vice versa to address the bill that is before you today. This is very confusing, and it's putting a lot of power in the hands of a very few number of people to do something that is unequivocally confusing to the population who would vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last one I have on the list is Gayleen Knoyton.
For the sake of time, my name is Gayleen Knoyton on behalf of the Virginia NAACP. We don't support ranked choice voting, but in essence of this bill, we'll speak on a further bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Are there any questions? I think Delegate Bloxham wanted to hear from Department of Elections.
Yes, sir.
Do we have anyone here from Department of Elections?
Chesapeake City is the city that has the voting equipment that's not ready. I have a report from the BOE. Wait a second.
Is there someone here from VACO or VML? You want to speak on this?
Come on up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. I'm Katie Boyle with VACO. And we had talked with Delegate Davis sort of early in the session about this bill. Initially, we had some concerns about the original provisions dealing with the parties making the decision to hold primaries through ranked choice voting because my understanding is that hardware may be available, but not everyone has the software. I had checked with just one registrar. Louisa County has been quoted about $20,000 for the initial upgrade for software, and then sort of a more modest ongoing cost. So I think we're not quite there yet in terms of the whole state being able to accommodate this. So we very much appreciated the removal of the language dealing with primaries. I'm just seeing the language this morning about kind of the governing body and the school board situation. We don't have a position on ranked choice voting as a concept. I'd probably need to think about this a little bit more. Probably also might need to think about situations in which a town and a county, since towns are now having elections in November as well, we probably need to think about how that interaction might work as well. But very much appreciate the removal of the language about the primary. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Delegate Sickles.
Katie, Ms. Boyle, can you ask your membership, this bill's going to go through a long process, whether they approve of the school board being able to override the governing body's decision?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, Mr. Chair, Delegate Sickles, would be glad to get some feedback. I think that certainly I understand the desire to kind of have some uniformity on the ballot. I am not certain. I was just texting with the registrars about whether you could even accommodate on the machines, sort of races handled in different ways. So I'd be glad to get some feedback and see how we feel about it. And thank you.
All right. Any further questions of Delegate Davis? Anything to add, Delegate?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate everyone's comments. I do take a little bit of exception that ranked choice voting is a scheme, because I can tell you one person that doesn't think it's a scheme is the guy sitting in the Capitol right now over there. So after conversations with him, I can assure you that he's appreciative of ranked choice voting and what the outcomes came and what happened after the fact. But that being said, this bill doesn't matter whether you like ranked choice voting or don't like ranked choice voting. Doesn't matter. We have ranked choice voting in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's it, end of story. Arlington, as we heard, is about to use ranked choice voting. So the question we have in front of us is, do we want a consistency on the ballot between local school boards and the governing body, or do we want to have that confusion? This is not a mandate. Once again, it was never put in the code as a mandate. It's local option only. But if they decide to do it, should we have the consistency? This says yes, we should have the consistency, and that's what this bill allows for. I understand Delegate Sickles' concern. Happy to have, if this bill were to come out, have those conversations further on who gets to decide. But this is just simple. Should both bodies do it at the same way, or should we confuse the bejesus out of the voters?
All right. You've heard the bill, and the committee operates by motion. Okay. All right. It's been a motion made, properly seconded to recommend.
Substitute motion.
Delegate Bloxham.
Lay the bill on the table.
A motion made, properly seconded to lay House Bill 1751 on the table. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. You want to vote, Mark? Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1751 is laid on the table by a vote of 5-3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate. I think the next one in the room was Delegate Glass, House Bill 2308. Come on up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm here to present House Bill 2308, a bill to extend the deadline for certification. As a federal member of the P&E committee, I don't have to tell you how many some changes have been made to our recent election system. One thing that hasn't changed is the deadline to certify results of the election, even given the increased workload and the fact that considering the fact that sometimes holidays may occur directly after the election, like Veterans Day did. The deadline is extended to be able to receive election results. However, the deadline to certify remains the same. So what this bill does is simply extends the deadline for certification at 7 days after the election to 7 days after the final deadline to return absentee ballots that have been postmarked on or before the date of the election. Again, it's designed to sort of give registrars enough time to process and do the necessary research to ensure that our elections are well. I ask that the P&E subcommittee approve this bill.
All right. Any questions of Delegate Glass? All right. Anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Good morning. My name is Pamela Brigham on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League supports HB 2308. A local electoral board may adjourn for up to 7 calendar days after meeting the day after the election, since the law provides that absentee ballots may arrive by noon on the third day following an election, as long as the ballots were postmarked by the close of the polls. The current process would unnecessarily and probably unintentionally shorten the allowable time for a local electoral board to adjourn. Whether you agree with the added time for receipt of absentee ballots or not, as long as the law provides for the extra time, this bill seems to be a housekeeping item to provide the electoral board with the same maximum 7 days adjournment. It does not affect the timing of the State Board of Elections certification. We urge you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here in the room wish to speak in opposition? All right, we will move online. We have a couple people signed up for the bill. Stephanie Isles.
Sorry about that, having some technical issues. We would like to thank Delegate Glass for introducing this most important legislation on behalf of the Virginia voter registrars and electoral board members. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar for the City of Norfolk. Historically, canvass of an election was required to be completed within 7 days of return of absentee ballots. However, currently law requires that the canvass of the election be completed within 7 days after the election. With the extension to count absentee ballots received from drop boxes on election day, as well as those postmarked and received until noon on the third business day after the election, compounded with the requirement of same-day voter registration with provisional voting up to and including election day, our workload has increased exponentially, and our time frame to complete the certification process has not. In the November 2022 general election, Norfolk had 489 same-day voter registrations on election day that required a provisional ballot be cast, researched by our election staff and reviewed by the Electoral Board. As the November 11th Veterans Day holiday was observed on the Friday after the election, the Postal Service delivery was delayed until the following Monday after the election for absentee ballots to be received and tabulated as part of our post-election process. This means we couldn't certify the election before noon on Monday and had to have it completed by Tuesday, November 15th. This bill is a common sense bill that has no political motivation. We are simply requesting an extension of the canvass to 7 days upon final receipt of absentee ballots, as we previously had, so that we can perform our duties diligently to review and process registrations, administer voting credit, receive and tabulate absentee ballots, and research and approve provisional ballots. We respectfully ask the committee support us in voting for this bill so we can complete these requirements and provide accurate election results to strengthen confidence in our electoral process. Thank you so much.
Next I have Allison Robbins.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Allison Robbins. I'm the Director of Elections and Registrar for Wise County. I'm also the Legislative Chair for the Voter Registrars Association. We thank Delegate Glass for carrying this bill, and we urge the committee to support the bill. Thank you so much.
All right, we have one against. Ann Gregorian.
Yes, hello. I'd like to point out once again that this bill has a companion bill, SB 1380, and basically it's accommodating all the radical changes to our electoral system that we've had over the last couple of years. So I'm not sure that accommodating bad choices in process and changing electoral processes that were made to accommodate an emergency pandemic and that continue today because some people liked how they worked is necessarily the right course. So we extend this. What happens when ranked choice voting comes in? We're going to extend it again because we have precinct results that need to come in, or it's a difficult tabulation, or somebody's software goes down. This is just, again, accommodating a bunch of processes in our election system that don't need to be there. We're taking something very simple, an election, and we're turning it into, I don't even know what it is. But I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated with how this is going. I appreciate your listening.
Thank you. I've two people signed up with no position. Mr. Crowe, Mr. McBride, do you all want to weigh in on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I mean, I just want to say that we've had a lot of, I don't know if it's affected anybody's votes, but we've had a lot of anecdotal examples of voters being confused. But I just want to note that the much bigger obstacles in our system have have more to do with where to vote, how to register to vote. There are numerous anecdotes in our system about when voters have trouble understanding how to participate in the process. And ranked choice voting is an optional exercise. You can either rank your candidates or you don't rank your candidates. And if your candidate does not fall, in the, under the third place position, you won't have any relevance to your vote. So I just want to make that note, and it's a much bigger benefit to voters when we talk about military ballots and primaries and things of that nature, where the voter does not have a chance to change their vote if someone drops out and things of that nature. So I think it's much better.
This particular bill, I don't mean to interrupt you. I think this particular bill, though, is on the period of counting the votes and certifying the votes. The ranked choice bills are coming up here momentarily.
Oh, okay. I think maybe I accidentally signed up for this one then. Sorry.
Is there anyone else wishes to speak on this bill? Come on up.
I'll be brief. Nancy Smith, Middle Resolution PAC. We oppose this bill more in principle than anything else. Virginia has now one of the longest election seasons in the country. That is not something to be proud of because the number of days, the staff that it takes, the frustration that we are hearing from registrars, from their staff, from electoral boards is overwhelming. The work and the cost to them is really quite beyond the pale. So to continue on, I understand the registrar's frustration, but to continue this on just extends the election season, delays getting results back. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm also a stand in opposition of this particular bill. Having worked in 2 localities over the last 3 years with their absentee ballots and their process, in the 4th Congressional District now, there will probably be at least 3, probably 4 or more elections this year alone. And then you push out the range for each of those particular election cycles, then you really are going to start having overlap for the whole process. And that's absolutely going to add more burden to the process. And the localities, yes, it's more work, and I'm sure, though, that the same-day registration is brought up by the example was thought about in terms of, gee whiz, what is this going to do and impact to the localities? And perhaps it's the same-day registration that needs to be reviewed and repealed rather than it continuing on to extend. So we are in opposition. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Delegate Glass, I'm trying to make sure that I understand the math on this. So if we can accept absentee ballots up to 3 days after the election, is that correct? And then your bill would extend the canvass up to 7 days past that.
7 days after the final deadline for the return of absentee ballots.
For a total of potentially 10 days, is that correct?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. All right, any final questions of Delegate Glass? Committee operates by motion.
Move to report.
Mr. Chair, substitute motion.
Delegate Williams.
Mr. Chair, substitute motion. Like to pass by and definitely like to speak to that motion.
You have the floor.
Anybody want a second?
Okay, motion made, properly seconded. Do you wish to speak to that motion?
Yes, sir. It sounds like we're trying to fix a bunch of problems that were created by same-day voter registration, drop boxes, no excuse absentee balloting, late return of absentee balloting. I'd like to see us go back to how it was before, where we had election day. not election season. People are currently voting nearly 3 months out of the year. People are sick of elections all year, every year. That's how much we're voting. That's how much elections, and continue to manipulate these elections and fiddle with them is frustrating Virginians. And you're skyrocketing the workload required of registrars. And we need to talk about reducing how much work we're putting on them, reducing how many problems we've created through our election system, and going back to how it used to be, where people had the responsibility to show up and vote. Thank you.
All right, Delegate Munden King, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, speaking to the motion.
You have the floor. We have
Thank you.
2 minutes on both sides.
Okay. So I'll be brief. Thank you for bringing this bill. Thank you to the registrars. There could not be two more different places than Wise County and Norfolk, Virginia. And for folks from those two locations to understand that this will help the people who actually do the work, I think is impressive. So thank you so much. It's unfortunate that a simple, good bill seems like it's going to be passed by because it increases the number of people who can participate in our democracy. Because our democracy is more open and the only 500 people who use same-day voting have become such an issue for people that they'll pass by this good bill. So I apologize for that, but thank you for bringing this forward.
Delegate Sickles.
Mr. Chairman, remind the committee that the 45-day period is required under federal law. We had a bill in here a couple years ago that Senator Reeves had and some other well-meaning people who wanted to allow the period to continue even longer, and we restricted it to 2.5 days, but longer so that the military and overseas ballots could get in. And we restricted it to the day that the provisional ballot has to be confirmed. That was in the law for a long time. If you cast your vote provisionally, you have to come into the registrar and prove your residency, et cetera, by noon on Friday. So we made that a consistent day. And it always confuses me, like a lot of people voted in the gubernatorial election. Our side lost under these new rules. The other side is doing pretty well under this. And to say it's too much trouble to have more access and have more people vote is just a ludicrous statement for me. I think both sides should want as many people to vote as possible, of course, that are legal to vote. And if you have more time, if they're voting earlier, you have more time to decide to analyze whether they're fraudulent voters or not, which some people seem to think there are. But it's safer under this current situation than the situation previous. So anyway, I hope the committee will support the registrars. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Sickles. Been a motion made, properly seconded, and debated, I might add, to pass by House Bill 2308 indefinitely. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 2308 passed by indefinitely by a vote of 5-3. Thank you, Delegate Glass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope we don't go back to the good old days. Thank you.
We have two bills from Delegate Hudson. Do you have a preference on which one you take first? So you want to take House Bill 2118. All right, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I believe there's a line amendment that should be prepared. Does the clerk have that?
Read it. Would you like me to read it in?
Go ahead and report that.
Okay. Mr. Chair. On line 29 of the introduced bill, after body period, insert the decision to use ranked choice voting in an election for any constitutional office that is shared by 2 or more units of government shall require a majority vote of the governing body of each county or city that shares such office, period.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The intent of the amendment is that there are a handful of localities in Virginia that share, for example, a Commonwealth's attorney like Arlington and Fairfax City.
All right, can we get a motion on that amendment? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The amended bill is before us. Delegate Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. This bill is now very similar to the bill that Delegate Davis brought before you, which is an expansion of a local option to all constitutional officers and now includes multi-jurisdictional ones as well. I know you spent quite a bit of time on this, and so I won't ask us to redo all of that. I'll simply read a statement that you should all have in your email from the legislative chair of the Voter Registrars Association of Virginia, who we also know is the registrar in Wise County. She says, the Voter Registrars Association supports HB 2118. We are grateful to Delegate Hudson for working with the association to address our concerns related to implementation in multi-jurisdictional constitutional offices, which we feel is resolved by the amendment language. The bill simply expands the allowance for local governments to opt in to provide ranked choice voting to all locally elected offices. To answer Delegate Bloxham's question earlier about where we stand in terms of readiness for ranked choice voting, there is one locality in Virginia whose election hardware is not yet ranked choice compatible, and that's Chesapeake City.
Delegate Bloxham.
So hardware is one thing. How about software? I mean, I don't think my locality is ready for the software, and we just heard it's fairly expensive.
Mr. Chair, Delegate Bloxham, yes, and that's a chicken egg question. They wouldn't buy the software until the local government had chosen to adopt the option. And so I think that they move in tandem. So when Arlington County passed the ordinance, then they buy the software. Charlottesville City and Albemarle County are currently considering ordinances as well. They pass the ordinance, then they buy the software. The good news is the Department of Elections has now worked with the National Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center to procure a statewide contract for the voter tabulation software so that can be made available at very low cost to all localities. And I thank Arlington County for spearheading that process.
Delegate Taylor.
I'd just like to make a comment. I believe it was back in December we had an update from our elections commissioner, Susan Beals, and there was quite a bit of discussion about the hardware and software. And forgive me if I don't have dates, I don't have those notes in front of me, but we are due for an upgrade to our election system in Virginia. And there was great concern about software and algorithms and being able to program things correctly. So at this time, I'm greatly concerned about ranked choice voting and our systems being able to handle that.
Mr. Chair, Delegate Taylor, the upgrades that I believe you're describing are to Virus, which is the backbone of the voter registration system. Ranked choice voting results do not need to be processed through that, so it's a problem that we should all be deeply concerned about, but somewhat separate from ranked choice voting adoption, which is why Arlington is able to proceed in June.
All right. Any further questions of Delegate Hudson at this juncture? All right. We will move into those who are for and against. As Delegate Hudson pointed out, we've had a fairly robust discussion about the policy of ranked choice voting. So anyhow, so we can hopefully just keep that in mind. Anyone wishing here in the room wish to speak in favor of the bill, come on up.
Good morning. I'm Pamela Berg on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. For the reasons I previously stated, the League of Women Voters supports expanded use of RCV in Virginia and therefore supports HB 2118. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor?
Hi, my name is Rain Burrows. I only know a handful of people that are against RCV. We need an expansion of possibilities. I am happy to vote for a Republican. We need to pull the parties together. We need to reach across the aisle because it doesn't look like much is getting done. And I think it will be a huge step forward in having our representatives represent us, a majority. If you have more people for this person, it just doesn't seem right to me in any sense that the only way your vote is wasted in ranked vote is if you're voting against someone. So I think it's a very powerful tool for us. And I beg you to pass this.
Thank you. Anyone here in the room wish to speak in opposition?
broken record. Nancy Smith, Middle Resolution PAC. We oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Second broken record in the room, Mr. Chairman. In addition to, just for clarification purposes, Veris works hand in glove with the setup and posture of doing voting, be it absentee voting and or on election day itself. And we've already spoken to the enormous workload that is on the current registrar's offices and how complex it is. So now we've got a new Veris system that will be coming down the pipeline here shortly. And we want to add on top of that the possibility of expanding the election cycle itself, expanding the time that it takes, and then you're overlapping time and time again. There will never be an opportunity for anyone in the election office to take a day's vacation, A. B, for the voter to have all of the moving parts stop long enough for them to even understand the process. And we really do need to start looking at simplifying and repealing some of the legislation that has gone before you all in the last couple of years through elections and through the body, and make it more simple for the entire process and less expensive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Zaya. I'm with the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. I know there's been a lot of discussion on this already, so I'll just add a couple of comments. And that is, I think it was brought up earlier, Richmond City is one of the only localities that has had a discussion about moving forward with ranked choice voting. In early September, one of their city council members brought a proposal to their city council to adopt ranked choice voting, and as a council they decided not to move forward with it at that time because it was very complicated, was going to be confusing, and especially there was a lot of concern brought up. There was opposition from both sides of the aisle because especially concerned with underserved communities being able to vote and being understanding of what was happening with the ranked choice voting. And so the councilwoman who actually brought the proposal forward ended up not voting for it in the end because they weren't ready and prepared to move forward with that. And just as a practice, we oppose ranked choice voting as in an atmosphere where there's already a level of mistrust with the voting machines, having something that's hard to count by hand, it just adds to that process. For these reasons, I oppose this bill. Thank you.
All right, we'll move online. I think we have 4 people online in favor of the bill. Allison Robbins.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Allison Robbins. Again, I'm with the Voter Registrars Association. I'm the registrar in Wise County. We thank Delegate Hudson for working with us on this bill. This particular bill does not necessarily do us any harm, which is the singular reason that we're able to support this legislation. It retains the requirement that the local governing bodies consult with their electoral boards and registrars about the feasibility of instituting ranked choice voting, should they be interested. So we thank the delegate for working with us and thank the committee.
Thank you. Shane Crow.
I thank the chair. Again, I stand in support of ranked choice voting, mostly in principle. Again, we're at a point in our human history where our pursuit of happiness is under attack with the current system. Therefore, it is our right as we the people to alter our form of government. Again, this legislation expands the option for ranked choice voting, which again liberalizes the voter to express their political wishes at so far as they wish. And it is something that, again, is being seeked out nationwide. Another most recent organization that is pursuing ranked choice voting is the Georgia chapter of the NAACP. They are now pursuing ranked choice voting as an option in order to upgrade their electoral system. Again, a lot of the confusion that comes from ranked choice voting is the fact that it works kind of like electing a U.S. Speaker of the House or a U.S. Senator from Georgia, just quicker. So, again, I stand in support.
Elizabeth Melson. Elizabeth, you're muted if you are there. All right. Move on to Jim McBride. Jim, do you wish to speak on this bill?
He's for it.
Let's see. Moving over to the against, we have Diana Howard.
I was actually not in favor of the bill. I was opposed.
Correct. I think we just shifted to the ones who are against. But go ahead.
Okay. Yes, for the same reason as before. It's confusing and complicated, and if you don't trust the machine right now to count 1 + 1 + 1, you're going to count it. You're going to now do it with an algorithm and throw out ballots if your first choice isn't there. So we're opposed.
Thank you. Ann Gregorian.
Yes, I'm sorry to have to speak on every bill. I'd like to say, firstly, I take exception to the assertion that because I'm opposed to fundamentally changing our traditional voting process, that I'm somehow trying to suppress someone's vote. It has nothing to do with voter suppression. It has to do with our elections and the people's business. So now we have to have a vote in order to have a vote. That's adding another layer to the process. And then I'm concerned as well, we have precinct level reporting, which is excellent. It's an excellent thing. How does that work? Do we have to transport the ballots to a central location? How is the software? Where are those machines? Who's going to transport those ballots? Are we going to need more time to certify? These are all questions that come from mission creep. I'll use that word again. It adequately describes what's happening here. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Clara Wheeler. Clara, you're muted. Yeah, you're still muted. I'm not sure what the issue is. You want to give us a thumbs down? Okay, if you figure out the mute button, we'll pull you back in the room. And then Galen Knoyton.
Yes, my name is Galen Knoyton with the Virginia NAACP. I understand that it is in the code that ranked choice voting is up to localities. However, it is our main concern that unlike Georgia NAACP, who supports ranked choice voting, we have multiple elections in Virginia every year. Georgia does not. The confusion that we're concerned about is that when you have your federal, your state, your local, school board, everything in November in that election, and that can be very, very confusing. We work very hard to turn out the vote every year, especially turn out the Black vote, and to bring someone out for another vote, it could be quite difficult. Lastly, I just want to say this: is that this is a recipe to bring the extreme right and the extreme left out to support a candidate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Are there any further questions of Delegate Hudson? Everything you'd like to add?
No, sir.
All right. You've heard the bill. Committee operates by motion.
Make the motion. Lay the bill on the table.
Motion made, properly seconded to lay House Bill 2118 on the table. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 2118 laid on the table by a vote of 5-3. You also have House Bill 2436.
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the committee, I'd be very happy to have you pass that one by, as it's a bigger bill than the one that you just tabled.
Would you like to pass it by for the day, or do you want it? What posture would you like to put that in?
What's that?
Second.
Motion made, properly seconded to pass by indefinitely House Bill 2436. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. All right, clerk will close the roll. House Bill 2436 is passed by 6-2. Thank you, Delegate Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and last bill patron, Delegate Blocks, I'm here on the subcommittee. Do you want to take up 1947 or 1948 first?
1948 first.
Okay, House Bill 1948 is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is similar to the bill I had last year, and what it does, we can just run through it. It puts on an absentee ballot the voter's birth date and the last four of his social, but it removes the witness signature. My reasoning is because the registrar can check the last four of the social and the birth date, and the witness could be from anywhere, and the registrar has no way of verifying. The witness has no way of knowing if the witness is even a real person. So I'm just trying to put a little bit of information on that a registrar can actually verify.
All right, any questions of Delegate Bloxham? Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate what you're trying to do with this bill, and I would ask the patron if he would be open to considering, particularly with the Social Security number aspects. There are some folks, for various reasons, who are eligible to vote, who are valid, but don't have a Social Security number. There have been some previous legislative bills brought forward that also include language around a unique identifier for those people who are eligible to vote but don't have a Social Security number. And I would ask the patron if he would be open to such an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, yes, if that's information that the registrar has, then yes, I would be open to it. I just need to verify with counsel and then to get the verbiage correct. But if that's information that the registrar readily has in order to check the identity of the voter, then yes, ma'am, Mr. Chairman, I would accept an amendment.
Follow up?
Delegate Maldonado.
If it would be helpful, there was a previous bill brought forth last year, Senate Bill 273, that had language empowering the state board to promulgate regulations to provide unique identifiers. So if that is helpful in looking at how to craft that, that might be a place to look.
Mr. Chair, if you give me a moment to pull up that legislation and find it, but yeah, maybe we can do something right now.
We'll be at ease for a minute.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Maldonado.
It would also be, if easier, to kind of accept it in concept and perhaps work through it in full committee. Okay.
Yeah, looking at the bill from last year, there are several places where you might want to make amendments. So you might want to make a number of amendments rather than just one single amendment. But if it's okay with the delegate, then we can certainly work on that.
So in concept, I would accept the amendment, but I need to see it. So I guess at full committee, if that would be the chairman's prerogative on how to proceed.
Yep. So I guess if we're not going to amend the bill here, because I'm not sure that we can actually get into that posture, then the subcommittee will recommend reporting or not. But if you do recommend reporting, then this bill would go forward as is, and then we would have to bring a substitute or line amendments, whichever one it is, to the full committee to then be adopted. So is everyone comfortable with debating this bill as is?
We're comfortable with
Okay.
trusting you to
Okay.
have the amendment.
Okay. If not, we can have that discussion.
This is not a hard concept.
Okay, so we'll debate this bill as is, and then we have some fast and furious amending going on over here, and then we will bring either a substitute or line amendments to the full committee that are then in the spirit of this discussion. So are there any questions, again, of Delegate Bloxham right now? Okay, anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Good morning again, Susan Hoag, for the record. In total support of the amendments to standing legislation, it does offer a cleaner way to verify who the voter actually is, along with previously when we've been handling absentee ballots, you really have no way of identifying who that person necessarily is. Takes away the concern and issue for a state of emergency where the witness signature could potentially be waived again. And so we think that it stands on good merit to add in the last 4 digits of social and birthday. As an officer of election, we're sworn to the privacy regulations surrounding all that confidential information. So I think that would be a good add to the current law. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Pamela Berg, League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters supports HB 1948. In a report to the General Assembly, a working group that included election officials and representatives of both major political parties found that the better way to authenticate voters is to require them to provide the date of birth and the last 4 digits of the Social Security number. The witness verification method is flawed and might not prevent voter fraud. This change would also make it possible for eligible voters who have difficulty finding witnesses to vote, particularly those who live alone, including older voters and voters with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here in the room wish to speak in opposition? All right, we will move online. I think we have one in favor of the bill, Ann Gregorian.
Yes, I normally don't agree with the League of Women Voters, but this time I do. I support this bill.
Thank you. And then under the no position category, Shane Crow. I don't know if you want to speak to this one.
Sorry, I didn't realize I had a position on this. I don't particularly have a position, and I'll pass by. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions of Delegate Bloxham? You have anything you'd like to add, Delegate?
Just looking from my registrar's office, just sent it, there is a unique number for people that do not have Social Security numbers. I'm not sure what that number is, but we'll make sure that's added to the bill. So that would be the number that the registrar would have on file to verify the voter. So I appreciate the amendment.
Okay. All right. So if we choose to go forward with this, subcommittees make recommendations. Subcommittees don't pass bills. So we would be recommending this go to the full committee, and then we'll have the appropriate amendment and or substitute at that point. But it's up to you all, and the committee operates by motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion made, properly seconded to recommend for reporting House Bill 1948. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1948 recommended for reporting 8-0. And I guess we'll discuss that one a little more on Friday. House Bill 1947, Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is also a bill that I brought last year, but I didn't have, as asked in the Senate, do you have any proof that this needs to be changed? And after a year of voting, I think the response probably is yes. What the bill basically does is change the permanent absentee ballot list to an annual absentee ballot list. In the early part of the year, the registrar would actually send out a letter to the people on the permanent absentee ballot list, asking if they want to continue to be on the absentee ballot list. It's a way to verify the voter, and it would be done annually. When I look at the permanent absentee ballot list from just one county that I represent, 683 people were on the permanent absentee ballot list. 6 ballots were returned undeliverable. I don't know if ELECT has the information statewide. There were others that needed to be incomplete and stuff, but these are 6 that came back, ballots that were undeliverable. And I just think that that's an area that, that's after 2 years, and I'm afraid that it would just be that amount every year. So that's why I just want to change it to a annual absentee ballot list.
All right. Any questions of Delegate Bloxham? Anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Good morning. Again, having worked in CAP and for a number of years now, when we have absentee ballots that are returned to us as undeliverable, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ballots that I have personally put my hands on that were undeliverable because of an absentee ballot. The absentee ballot had gone out, undeliverable comes back, and on the permanent list, there's no incentive for anyone once I move out and change my address to necessarily even consider thinking about, oh yeah, I actually need to change my voter registration to my new address. And with that permanent list, you have repetitive time and time again. There's more exercise, there's more responsibility for the registrars to attempt to even clean up their voter rolls because of that. And all the wasted time, money, et cetera, that goes along with that. So going to just a single year's request for an absentee ballot, it would be a huge improvement over what we have seen even in this last election going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone come on up.
Nancy Smith, Middle Resolution PAC. Yes, we stand in support of this bill. There is quite a bit of confusion in the community all over the state about what it means to be on a permanent absentee list. There are individuals who came in to vote who actually, another issue, but had to cast a provisional on Election Day because they did not realize they were on a permanent absentee list, got the ballot or didn't receive the ballot, came in to vote, and then actually could not vote on Election Day. Separate issue, but very related. So it's complicated. The undeliverable issue is real, and there's a large volume of voters who get ballots, who do not get ballots, who have moved out of the state, and the Department of Elections will continue to send those ballots until finally the file is cleaned up enough to do that. So those individuals are in the list to continue to get those ballots potentially for 2 and 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the room wish to speak in opposition?
Good morning, Jennifer Van E. speaking on behalf of Fairfax County government, and we oppose this bill as we supported the expansion to the permanent registration list.
Thank you. All right, we will move online. Looks like we have one person for the bill, Ann Gregorian.
Yes, I'm very sorry to keep speaking on everything, but these are all big issues that if you're in the polls, you see it. You see people come in, they're confused. They actually sign a goldenrod saying that they asked the ballot when they didn't, just so that they could cast a live ballot versus having to vote provisional, because it's not fair that somebody that requested a ballot but didn't get it gets to vote a live ballot early absentee. Somebody who doesn't even know that a ballot was requested on their behalf has to sign a provisional. So the numbers on that are not available. ELECT is working on fixing that form and fixing that process. Another thing I'd like to briefly bring up is if somebody moves out of state, as long as they keep requesting that absentee ballot, there's nothing to stop them from getting it. So because we don't put any restriction on the expiration of a driver's license, and there's no check and balance, as long as you just keep requesting, you don't even have to keep requesting it now. The permanent absentee will keep going wherever you requested it be sent. So thank you.
I think Lori Moore is also in favor. Go
yes,
ahead.
thank you. Thank you. I support 1947.
The permanent absentee ballot voter roll should be eliminated in favor of an annual application for an absentee ballot. Permanent absentee ballot voter rolls create confusion and allow for the misappropriation of ballots. Confusion arises because many voters are not aware that they are on the permanent absentee ballot list. A voter does not have to ask to be on the list. Rather, they are automatically placed on it after requesting an absentee ballot just one time. To assume a voter wants to be on a permanent absentee ballot list based on one past request is a bit presumptuous. As an election officer, I can tell you that many voters do not want to be on the permanent absentee ballot list. Misappropriation of ballots occurs when absentee ballots are automatically sent out without request by the voter to addresses no longer associated with the voter. Unfortunately, ELECT has a poor track record of updating voter addresses, with the result that absentee ballots are sent to outdated addresses, allowing anyone to use them. This is a huge vulnerability in Virginia's election system. The permanent absentee ballot list should be repealed. Respectfully, I would suggest an amendment to the bill that a ballot application also be required to include a voter's current address and photo ID. Thank you.
All right, we will move over to those who are against. First one on the list, Vic Nichols.
Yes, the concerns that I have are for the disabled population. What happened was when the original whole deal came out, it was that we would go to a doctor, we would have an appointment where we had paperwork to fill out. So we had to pay for the appointment, then had to pay for the paperwork to get filled out, ship that out there. And now we keep changing things. There's nothing in here that actually makes an exception for that. And that becomes a problem because, every year, it doesn't matter what. Now you're getting something different because we already have to vote every year. So here's more paperwork that we end up having to fill out that we may or may not get. So I would like to see some sort of exception. I understand there were so many that were put into that being able to vote all the time deal, but it makes it, if you could get rid of them and just concentrate on the disabled population and what can be done there, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Galen Canoiton.
Yes, I'm with the Virginia NAACP. We strongly oppose this bill. I think about our senior citizens who use absentee ballot. It reminds them, and many reminders that we can give for a voter to vote. We should do that. We should not have voter suppression and stop a person from being able to vote and having to do it annually if they wish to vote absentee. The other issues in terms of, I'm concerned with the word many because I don't think that's legit. But I think that that's an administrative issue that can be resolved on the state level. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else online that wishes to speak on this bill? Mr. Crow, go ahead.
Thank the chair. I've had a bit of personal experience. By the way, I'm standing in support of the bill. I've had a bit of personal experience with the permanent absentee ballot list. I initially signed up during the pandemic in 2020. However, that was given the circumstances at the time. And then after the circumstances changed, I found that in-person early voting was more adept. However, it was a little complicated on my end, at least, to try and get off the permanent absentee voter list. And certainly I'm not the only one who was in a similar pickle. So I definitely support any movement that would make it easier to change status. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions of Delegate Bloxham? Anything you'd like to add, Delegate?
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Sickles.
I'd like to speak to the bill at the appropriate time.
I think now's the time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering whether you could call the elect to have them attend these meetings, because there's been a lot of allegations made about what they do and don't do that we can't ask them about if they don't attend. I think this is unprecedented that they don't send somebody to, when these are very technical bills, to answer our questions. But I know that ELECT has procedures to clean up the voter file. I mean, that's what they do all year long. I think they're getting better at it. They have several systems that they use to go through to clean up. And if the issue is, this last gentleman brought up about being able to easily get off of it, I haven't heard that. I don't have people confused in my district, I have to tell you. No one's confused. All I get are thanks for making the voting process easier. People really like the reforms that we did. You know, I don't know where they don't like it. Even, you know, if you live in a place that's hard to go vote, I don't know why you wouldn't like being able to do it from home more easily. So, you know, but back to my original point, we could ask ELECT what they're doing to make sure the file is up to date and these types of things if they came to the meeting. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
We will make that request. I'll talk to the chairman about that.
Mr. Chairman, last word.
I have Delegate Waxman in the queue.
I would like to speak for the bill. I've got a constituent and who also is a friend whose son keeps getting absentee ballots every year. It's very harmful to her because she lost her son 5 years ago. He took his own life, and every year they get a reminder with this ballot that's mailed out automatically.
All right, Delegate Bloxham, you want the last word?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm not trying to take away the right of anybody to vote absentee. They're just going to get a letter at the beginning of the year to verify who they are and do you want to be on the list. Just another easy way for, I think, ELECT to clean up the rolls. And that's all I'm trying to do, Mr. Chairman.
All right. You've heard the bill, and those for and against. Committee operates by motion.
Second.
Delegate Munden King, do you want to speak to the motion?
Speak to the motion. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. I want to thank one of the speakers who talked about those with disabilities and seniors. I believe that when you sign up for absentee voting, there's a box that you check, to make it permanent. So there are options. And I think that this is just something that increases access to voting, which we should all be in support of. This seems like a list maintenance issue. I don't know of anyone, any cases in Virginia of people voting with someone else's absentee ballot. So I think that this is a maintenance issue. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support it.
Delegate Bloxham speaking to the motion.
Yes, sir. Of course, I'm supporting the measure. I just want to make sure that we verify, or want to correct that I was in here for the debates about opt-in or opt-out. You have to opt out, not to be on the, it is automatically assumed when you sign on to a permanent absentee ballot list that you will be on it until you are removed. So that's just something, and that's one reason why I think this bill is so important.
Delegate Williams speaking to the motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The biggest problem here is that, for instance, I live in a small rental home, and I continue to get multiple individuals' mail. And that's the problem. The absentee ballot goes out, and then if it comes back as undeliverable, fine, the person's not there. But if it goes out and it never comes back, you have no idea where it ended up. And it could have ended up with somebody else voting it. So this bill stops that. It's also illegal to speed, but everybody does it, so,
Delegate Munden King speaking to the motion.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to belabor this, but I cannot let it go unchecked that Virginia has people voting illegally, or that these absentee ballots or permanent lists are contributing to some sort of voter fraud, because we all know that is simply not true. And I hope that we can have someone from ELECT join these meetings to bring facts and not just experiences. I'm sorry, did someone have something to say?
No, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So we can't continue this narrative that we have some sort of, I don't think that's the intention of the patron. So I just please, Virginia does not have a problem with people voting with absentee ballots. We need to clean up the list, and hopefully we can find some consensus to do that without continuing a false narrative about people voting.
All right, so there's been a motion made and properly seconded to recommend for reporting House Bill 1947. Members wishing to vote, vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1947 recommended for reporting by a vote of 5-3. Being no further business before the committee, we're adjourned.